bones were found, but nobody knew quite what they were. There was much speculation as to what they could be. Dr. Mantle and his wife said, "Oh, dearie me, what have we taken out of the ground? Perhaps we should have left things alone." Well, we've never seen anything like these before. Just what do we make of these bones? Was it a great big dog? Was it a fierce old giant? Now how will we ever know? Perhaps an elephant? No, that can't be right. Maybe a fiery dragon that set things alight. Well, we've racked our brains and we still don't know. Perhaps we should have left things alone. Oh, what is the answer? A prehistoric monster? Well, what do we make of these bones? Was it a great big dog? Was it a fierce old giant? Now, how will we ever know? No. Perhaps an elephant? No, that can't be right. Maybe a fiery dragon that set things alight. Well, we've racked our brains and we still don't know. Perhaps we should have left things alone. Oh, what is the answer? A prehistoric monster? Well, what do we make of these bones?
So how's your fossil coming along then, Dill?
Oh, I'll show you. There you are.
You know, all the same though, Dill, most people would find it pretty hard to imagine what a complete chicken would look like if they only had a fossilized chicken bone to go on.
Well, that's the problem Dr. Mantell had. He'd found the teeth all right, but it wasn't until 9 years later, in 1831, that he finally discovered a complete skeleton. Then he could see for the first time ever what kind of an animal the fossilized teeth had come from, and what it would have looked like back in the Mesozoic age.
I hate to say this, Dill, but you know, Dr. Mantell's strange fossilized creature has come out looking more than a little like you.
Of course it does. That's why he called it an Iguanodon, after a fierce iguana lizard that lived in South America, and dont meaning teeth. It wasn't until several years later that people first began to realize that the Iguanodon was just one of the prehistoric reptiles called the dinosaurs.
The name dinosaur means terrible lizard. And by the time that the word dinosaur first came into common use, all kinds of people have been busy working out their own ideas of what the Iguanodon would have looked like in real life. This is a model specially made for the Crystal Palace grounds in London in 1854. He's completely the wrong shape. His colours are all wrong. And as for the spiky horn on his nose, well, even Dr. Mantell got that wrong. This is where it really fits.
The people of Maidstone in Kent, near where the Iguanodon was found, were so pleased with it that they decided to put old Iggy here into their town's coat of arms.
Today, of course, we now know that the Iguanodon that Dr. Mantell discovered was only one of a whole family of bird-footed dinosaurs, the second of our dinosaur dozens.
Dinosaur dozen, bird-footed.
Once again, those dinosaur names. Try to say them out loud and then say them again. Diplodocus, Volcanodon and Plateosaurus, Iguanodon, Deinonychus and Tyrannosaurus, Triceratops, Dilophosaurus and Hypsilophodon with Torosaurus, Stegosaurus. That's about enough of them.
Lesothosaurus, Hypsilophodon, Pachycephalosaurus, Prosaurolophus, Hadrosaurus, Parksosaurus, Anatosaurus, Corythosaurus, Parasaurolophus, Lambiosaurus, Iguanodon, Shantungosaurus.
Dr. Mantell's Iguanodon. Did you spot him in the dinosaur dozen? He was just the first of the dinosaurs to be discovered in Victorian Britain. Very soon afterwards came other similar fossilized creatures, and the Megalosaurus and Cetiosaurus quickly found themselves occupying pride of place in the museums.
By now, people were using the word dinosaur to describe a whole collection of prehistoric animals that have been found all over the world. In 1877, coal miners in the Belgian town of Bernissart were opening up a new coal seam when they came across the remains of 31 Iguanodon skeletons, 11 of them virtually complete. It's believed that a whole group of them stumbled into a deep ravine by mistake to remain there for over 100 million years. But it was in North America that dinosaur fever really took hold. Here are some of the numerous places they've been found. In Colorado, Wyoming, Utah and Montana, and Canada. Fossil hunters in the early days even had to fight off the Red Indians to collect dinosaur relics. And not just Indians, because at least two of the most dedicated of the American collectors, Edward Cope and Othniel Marsh, were so jealous of each other's discoveries that they actually fought gun battles between them over who could lay claim to the most bones. Luckily, there were plenty to be found, however. In fact, more than enough for both of them. They could be found just lying in the desert, large bones waiting to be picked up. One non-dinosaur collector built a shack out of the bones. By the time Cope and Marsh had ceased their fighting and feuding, no fewer than 136 new kinds of dinosaurs had been discovered and named.
There's a dinosaur national monument in the state of Utah with a special walkway where visitors can see dinosaur bones trapped inside a cliff face. And the town nearby, just a mile or two across the Colorado border, also has a new name. Dinosaur, with street signs straight from our dinosaur dozens.
Dinosaur remains have been found in almost every part of the world, and we may be sure that there are still many more waiting to be discovered. And although they varied tremendously in shape, size and weight, all the dinosaurs have one thing in common.
Their names were difficult to spell?
No, it was all to do with the way they walked, because all dinosaurs walked with erect leg movements. In other words, they were reptiles that were able to stand upright. Unlike some reptiles I could name.
Here, it's not my fault that my legs come out at the side. I can't help being a sprawler.
Of course it's not your fault, Dill. I'm sure you're perfectly at home swimming along in a swamp.
Look, see? We crocs can stand up when we're running.
That's right, but you can't stand up properly, not like a dinosaur.
Well, that's what my song was all about, wasn't it? If I had to be
I shouldn't worry about it too much, you know, Dill. After all, if you were a dinosaur, you'd be extinct by now.
I know that. But remember that I am related to the dinosaurs. After all, I was born from an egg.
You're right, Dill. It's now known that the dinosaurs were hatched from eggs in specially prepared nesting sites that were looked after by their parents. Quite recently, a whole nesting site of hadrosaurs has been found in America, and big nests of perfect eggs found in Mongolia in Asia.
It's funny to think that a great big dinosaur like a Diplodocus could have come out of such a tiny egg.
That's right, Dill. But the eggs couldn't have been much bigger, because a bigger egg would need a much tougher shell. And if the shell becomes too tough and thick, the baby dinosaur inside couldn't peck its way out.
I bet a croc could.
Of course, Dill. Today we believe that half a dozen to a dozen was about as many eggs as most dinosaurs would lay at any one time. Here is a typical clutch, a completely fossilized Protoceratops nest.
Just imagine half a dozen little dinosaurs all hollering for attention. And dinosaurs could shout, I can tell you.
Wouldn't have been much fun keeping one as a pet, would it?
A sweet Diplodocus, but not Tyrannosaurus, I think. What if he escaped into the streets of London? He wouldn't have been much of a pet. Among the total of over 800 dinosaurs, Tyrannosaurus was probably the most frightening and certainly one of the tallest animals ever to walk on the earth.
Here's one of his relatives fighting Triceratops in the 1925 film The Lost World.
The only good thing about him is the fact that this sort of film got it wrong, because he could only walk quite slowly, and so he wasn't much of a hunter at all. In fact, he spent most of his days feeding off the kills made by others. Unlike this scene, where a Tyrannosaurus is shown eating a deer, which wasn't even around then.
Do you know what dinosaurs did all day?
Well, my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather remembers his great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother telling him what dinosaurs did. They just sort of plodded around going nowhere, or just sat still for long periods of time, like we crocs do in swamps or on rocks.
Sounds rather boring.
Not at all. It refreshes the brain.
Which many of the dinosaurs hadn't got much of.
I know. Like Diplodocus and that practically brainless clot Stegosaurus. They all had very small brains.
Not all. Some of the dinosaurs had quite well-developed brains when compared with the weight of their bodies. They were quite intelligent. In fact, some of them were almost as bright as you modern crocodiles, Dill.
Oh, thank you.
What's more, they'd also developed very good eyes for night hunting, as well as fierce teeth and claws.
So they weren't all pea-brains like the plodders and the armoured dinosaurs?
Quite the opposite. There were the hunters and killers. They had the skills to chase and kill almost anything that moved, from reptiles and dinosaurs to some of the ancestors of mammals that human beings are descended from.
I think this means the next dinosaur